Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to another episode of Lunch Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and today I've got something very interesting for you all. We're going to be making a Jamaican style chicken, and we're going to be serving that with Jamaican rice. But before I proceed to that step, we're going to start off by introducing what we'll be working with today. So from the very front, I'm going to be using one whole onion, red and white. I'm also going to be using a bit of lime, a bit of some coconut milk, and a bit of some Jamaican spice, or rather Jamaican jerk spice, which we made ourselves, which I'll inform you about later. I'll also be using some 2 slices of lemon there, a bit of some basmati rice, and a few cloves. We're also going to be using about 200 grams of chicken breast, about 1 cup of black beans, some fresh chives, a couple of chilies, red and green, some black peppercorns, some olive oil, and last but not least, some salt. So we're going to take a short break now while we allow you to refresh and get ready for the show. And for those of you who are going to be taking notes for this particular episode, this is your chance now to grab your pens and papers, and when we come back, we're just going to dig in. So see you after a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We were just introducing the dish of the day, which is a Jamaican style chicken with some Jamaican rice. And we're just about to jump into that very, very interesting process. So first off, we're going to grab a pot, and we're going to also be grabbing some water, which of course you're going to be using to make your rice. So very, very simply, start by heating up your pan. And into that, you're going to add about 2 cups of water. And of course, very important to season your salt. Season your water with a bit of salt. And now next up, grab your cloves, and just very, very easily, using your fingertips, just proceed to just break those heads and just pour everything into your pot. And repeat the same for about 4 pieces of clove. And proceed to do the same to the very end. So one particular trick with cloves, every time you actually crack the head of a clove, you actually release quite a bit of potency to it. And second of all, it actually really cures that bitterness that most of you dread every time you hear the name clove. So very, 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 very good tip there for you all. So now next up, we're just going to allow that to continue, and we're going to proceed to marinate our chicken. So very, very simple. Proceed by grabbing your jerk spice and your chicken. And very, very importantly, very handy to have some kitchen paper. Start by first of all lifting your chicken piece, and of course patching it down with some kitchen towel. And this particularly helps the chicken to actually really absorb the flavors really well, and just takes away that excess amount of water on the skin. So once that's done, just be sure to go right into the cracks as well of the chicken, any spaces around that couldn't be reached on the surface. And just add that into a bowl. And all you're going to do now is just grab your spice. And as I'd mentioned when we introduced the show, very, very simple recipe for that, and a very, very easy one to find online as well. But this actually entails, you can actually hear that, it actually entails quite a bit of pepper. So there is some paprika in there, some cayenne pepper, You've also got some oregano, some garlic powder, some ginger powder, some aniseed, some cloves. So quite a beautiful potency of ingredients in there. And very importantly, when you're working with such a spice, be sure to always make sure to open your windows, always give the room quite a bit of air. And even as you can tell from my breath, it actually just runs your breath down. So I'm actually going to do it really quickly, and we're just going to allow that to marinate. And now once you're done, proceed to cover with some cling film and allow your chicken quite a bit of time to just adapt to that marination. And basically, as you see, it's a very dry rub, so very much one of the kind that you should always give quite a bit of time for your chicken to do so. So the recommended time for marinating that would be overnight. But particularly for this one, we're going to just allow this to rest, and we're going to take a break shortly. But before we do so, we're going to proceed to add a bit of rice to our pot here. So very simple. Very similarly to many questions that we've received, a very simple way of cooking your rice perfectly. Always just grab a container, measure 2 parts water and 1 part rice, and just proceed to actually just cook that down. So our water is now boiling. We'll proceed to add the rice, a bit of olive oil, and just allow that to come to the boil. But while we do that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you in a very short while. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we were actually working on a very simple marination for some Jamaican chicken, or rather the jerk chicken, but we will not call it jerk chicken on the show because it is not the original recipe. So that's what we've been working on, and we had a piece that we had actually marinated a little earlier, and we're just going to open that up. And also a good reminder that I can give to all of you who are watching, if you're going to attempt to make Jamaican jerk chicken in your house, I would suggest be very cautious when doing so, for particularly 2 things. The spices will go right into your neighbors. The spices will go actually very far away from you, and you might actually notice the potency of mixing the spices together, but it is very potent. So be sure to do 2 things. Foremost, never touch your eyes while working with Jamaican jerk spice. Second of all, try not to touch any particular openings, especially your ears, your nose, or your lips, because it will actually begin to burn. And last but not least, be very sure that if you're going to be making Jamaican jerk, have someone at least around you, so in case of anything that happens as such, you actually have someone to rush you to hospital if worst case scenario. But for this particular reason, as I said, we're going to make an alternative to that, one that you probably can be able to do yourselves at home. So we're going to proceed to just unwrap this piece of chicken, and very simply we're going to transfer this into the oven. So very important to have your oven tray ready with a bit of some foil paper. And then something else, also begin to reheat your oven, of course, in good time. So always allow your oven to actually reheat in a bit of time before you proceed to do so. And the last and final process is just to grease your aluminum foil. Remember, this particularly helps you to lift the chicken off the aluminum foil really easily when it's done. And second of all, it actually gives your chicken a bit of color while it cooks. So you will actually notice that the underside will have a bit of a nice gloss to it. But not to mention that it is very also important to always remember to just apply just a little bit of grease to your meat, especially when working with it or oven grilling it. Meat will actually go very, very dry in the oven. It's never a bad idea to actually drizzle just a little bit of oil before that happens. So we're just going to drizzle just a little bit of oil right over the top. Be sure to get to the very end. And now proceed to squeeze on top of that a bit of lemon. So I'm just going to grab some lemon there and just squeeze the juice right over the top of the chicken. And proceed to pour some right around the base of the chicken. Of course, going just slightly off the farthest edges of the chicken. And that will actually combine really well in the oven while your chicken is absorbing all the juices, as well as when it's actually heating up from the bottom. So very simply, you're going to just move this into your oven. And you're going to be baking that, particularly for its size, for anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes. So just slide that right in the center. And now proceed to allow it to cook. And while that continues, we're just going to proceed to finish off the rice that we mentioned earlier. So this is now about 3/4 ways cooked when we turned it down. We're just going to reheat that now. And to that, you will require just a bit of water just to steam the last bit of your rice. And proceed now to add your coconut milk. And proceed to use a spoon to just break the surface of the rice, allowing your coconut milk to sink to the bottom of the pan. And now you can allow that now to continue cooking until it's done. We are also going to be adding quite a bit of some color to that rice, so very, very important that you at this point begin to chop your chives, because you will actually have to mix those in just slightly ahead of time. But before you do that, last and final ingredient to go into your rice, your beans, of course. Always important to add those at the very, very end, because all you want to do is just allow them to reheat. And just proceed to mix everything together. Of course, remember to always also spoon down any rice that is on the sides. Just level that with a spoon. And just allow that now to finish cooking on low heat. And you can at this stage proceed to chop your chives, chopping them as fine as you can. And you can proceed to just sprinkle that right over the surface of your rice. And your rice will now just begin to just absorb all those flavors. And now, all that's left to do now is give your chicken a bit of time to cook. Give your rice as well just a bit of time to cook off. But we did have a piece that we had actually made earlier in the show, and we're just going to take it out and show it to you. Now we have a piece that we had actually made a little earlier. And And we're just going to proceed to grab a plate and proceed to move it from the pan first of all. And now that's a piece that's already cooked, so we're just going to allow our rice to just cook down slightly. And of course, always making sure to just break the surface with your spoon, and that should actually allow your coconut milk to evaporate a little faster. Remember, your rice is pretty much cooked at this stage, so you don't really want to allow your rice to overcook. So very important that you really do that at very, very low heat. Now we're going to go ahead and plate our dish, so I'm just going to grab a mat and of course our plate of choice, and very, very simply we're just going to proceed to plate. So very, very crucial, always have quite a bit of time making this dish. As I mentioned, the chicken does take quite a bit of time to marinate, so always try and do that way ahead of time, and probably cook it or grill it or oven roast it just before time. So we're going to proceed to plate, and we're going to start simply by just grabbing a bit of some white onion. Just proceed to peel that. Now proceed to take the cores off. And now proceed to start chopping your onion, of course cutting some very, very thin half moon shapes. And proceed to do so to the very end. And proceed to do the same thing with your red onion, using of course just about half a piece. Proceed to peel that as well. And proceed once more to chop that into some half moon shapes. And that's about it. Now next up, grab a bowl and add your onions to it. To that you will incorporate a bit of olive oil, small pinch of salt, some of your Jamaican seasoning, and of course one more fresh squeeze of lemon juice. Discard the rest. And now grab a spoon and proceed to mix everything together. Right, so your simple salad is now ready, and your rice is now also cooked, so we're just going to turn that down. Just proceed to just mix that through, just allowing the chives at this stage to blend in flavor with the rice and the beans. And now all you're left to do is proceed to plate. So very, very simply, proceed by putting a small bed or plating a small bed of those onions right at the base of your plate. After that, grab your piece of chicken and just place that right over the top like that, and just proceed to scoop just a little bit more onion right over the top there, but of course not hiding the chicken, just to complement it. And now proceed to add your rice using a lifter, of course. Just spruce your rice up by giving it a quick mix, and proceed to just plate your rice right on the side like that. Right, simple as that. And once done, of course, very refreshing to always have a bit of lime with some jarred chicken. So for that, you're just going to grab one small lime and just cut it into halves. Of course, beginning to remove the seeds is always a plus, of course, for your guests. And just proceed to just place those on the plate, and that would be a very simple technique and step of making a very simple Jamaican style chicken with, of course, some Jamaican rice. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once more for tuning in and being with us this far. Once again, I will remind you that we do have a Facebook page where you can actually leave your comments, your inquiries, or any questions pertaining the show, and we will definitely be looking forward to getting back to you. But from the studios, thank you so much for tuning in, and until the next episode where we continue to show you more creative ways, 10 ways with rice. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy your day, and see you soon.